Yo, Charley, welcome to Democracy Dey Street, where Gen Z checks power street style. My name is Albert Japan and I'm your host for today. Today, we are talking about serious matters. They can't make serious small. We are talking about the constitutional review exercise. So, as you may or may not be aware, one of the first things President Mahama is rolling out is a review of 1992 Constitution. So, they check the Constitution, take out some things, add new things. Now, this will be the first time we do constitutional review exercise. In 2010, we had a review exercise, came out some big reports, but nothing happened. Today, my guests are going to help us dissect what this constitutional review exercise is, how different is it from the 2010 exercise, and more importantly, how we as young people are going to be involved in the process and what we can do to ensure we have a constitution that works for all of us. Because, Charlie, you be honest, a lot of the problems that we have, we attribute it to the constitution that we have. So joining me to discuss this in the studio is Mr. Noah Ephraim Adamte. Noah is a senior lawyer. Aside being a senior lawyer, he's a researcher with the Constitutional Review Committee. Also joining me today is Mr. Kofi Wayo. Mr. Kofi Wayo is street boy, so they can't tell you from street level. Is that not the designation, Kofi? The street boy. All right. So let's delve right in. Noah, another Constitution Review exercise. What are we doing? Tell us.
Yeah, so like you rightly said, Albert, this is not the first time we are having a constitution review. We saw one 2010, 2011 under Prof. Mills. And then somewhere in 2024, the then Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, I think, Honorable Osei Sabunsu, also considered a committee, which was the Constitutional Review Consultative Committee, to also look into the Constitution. They submitted their report somewhere close to the end of the year, I think somewhere the 30th of December. So that document is also there. But when President Mahama was on his campaign, he spoke about the need that our Constitution be reviewed. So it was one of the main campaign policies that he campaigned around during the campaign for the elections in 2024. So like you said, when he won, one of the first things he did was to constitute the committee that would look into the review of the Constitution. But the committee has a specific mandate, which is that they have to look at the 2011 report, then what the 2024 committee came out with, and then synthesize those reports and look at whether a lot of water has gone under the bridge between that time and then now, and then see what they can also recommend after engaging with Ghanaians for the amendment to actually take place with parliamentary input and then input from Ghanaians as a whole. So this, since somewhere in March, the committee has been working. The committee has divided its work into a number of stages. So the first stage was a stakeholder engagement, where the committee met individuals and groups that, I would say, practice within some specific fields. So in the decentralization and local governance space, the committee has met some experts within that field. The committee has met experts in land management, human rights, and some other areas. Moving from that, the committee will then have what it calls the public engagements. So Ghana has been zoned into about 8 zones. So the committee will be moving around these 8 cities across the country to engage the general public. The committee then will come in-house and then will also try and then deliberate among themselves based on the inputs that they have gathered from people generally, and then try to come out with a report. But one of the innovative things the committee is doing is that recognizing the need to have youth voices, because as Professor Kwesi Prempeh has said, they are not going to be with this constitution for a long time, but we are going to be with the constitution. So if there's going to be any constitution amendment, it must really platform the voices of young people. So the committee thought through it and realized that a lot of young people are online. And so the committee has started a series of online engagements. I think this month they have the first one on Twitter. So a number of them are still being arranged to be on Twitter. There's going to be one on a number of them also on Facebook. to engage a lot of young people. But mainly also, the zonal engagement, the public engagements in the age zones are really targeting young people. We are trying to be a place where young people are, give them the platform to speak, present what the committee has heard even from these persons. We believe work in the spaces that the committee is looking at, bring their opinions to the young people and hear what the young people also have to say about it. I am very excited about what the committee and the president had in mind in putting together this committee. And I hope that it wouldn't be like the 2011 or the 2024 reports, but we will have a broader engagement, even with Parliament, to get the necessary bills through, and then we'll have a constitution that reflects our life now as a growing democracy.
Nice. Seems like a very interesting exercise going on. So, Kofi, my question to you is this. It seems that the NDC is very fixated on amending our constitution. If we take a step back, we watch history small. The current 1992 constitution is a child of the NDC as they transition from the military regime into a democratic regime. So why is the NDC in such a hurry to change the constitution that they get? Is it that they do no longer believe in the 92 constitution, or that the NDC is just living up to its ideals as a social democratic party?
Thank you, Albert. The vision of the NDC and the ideological backing of the NDC is social democracy. And the president now, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, made a promise to the good people of Ghana that they are growing up as a country. Our country has got certain deficiencies with the constitution, which he feels that can be amended to actually reflect the dreams and aspirations of our country. So, living by what his mentor then began, we all believe that is a step in the right direction to actually put the nation, the constitution, in a better shape to actually help govern the nation. So the NDC going by this constitutional review process is actually direction, because there are certain aspects of it where lawyers and non-lawyers have actually come out to say we could have actually done better from the 1992 process that actually birthed this constitution.
Okay. All right, Noah. So you said a lot of good things. Just summarizing it up, essentially being that you are reviewing the constitution and you are looking at what the previous attempts have been and how things have changed between then and now, and what changes should be done. So I guess my question really is the constitution exercise, the exercise that we are doing, is it to fix the problems that we have with the 1992 constitution, or is it to come up with a constitution that is forward thinking? And are we going to get a completely different document, or we are just going to, knit and pick and do patchwork?
Yeah, so personally, I belong to that school that believed that Ghana needs a new constitution. I believed in that for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons I always put out is that I believe that the constitution making process itself is a process that unifies a country. And I argue strongly that the process that birthed the 1992 constitution was not a very unifying process. That is my personal view when it comes to how the 1992 constitution was birthed. And we should also know that the constitution 1992 was written within a frame where we were given an undemocratic leader the chance to, or the opportunity to transfer Ghana into a democratic era. And so there had to be compromises here and there. So if you look closely at the constitution, as people have argued, it is a very heavy-handed, executive-oriented constitution. And I think it's about time we move away from that. And so I believe strongly that we need to have a new constitution on its own that would unify Ghana, consolidate our similarities, and then patch the differences that we have as a group of people. Not necessarily about the content of the constitution, but the whole philosophy around what the constitution represents to the ordinary Ghanaian. But President Mahama, I'm sure, had spoken to his own advisors and has listened to Ghanaians whilst on his campaign tour, and he believed that we should have a review that will provide recommendations on specific provisions that can be amended. And it's because a lot of Ghanaians also believe that the constitution is good and it doesn't really need a lot of work. So I'm sure the consensus from both devices is what has led to this. We look at the mindsets of the committee, and then even the president and then his people around him. It suggests that the constitution is not just trying to make some amendments to, or sorry, the committee is not trying to make some amendment to provisions of the constitution alone. It's going to attempt to forge a constitution that is development oriented and that is youth oriented going forward. So I believe that in the process of amending some provision of the constitution, it will not just be patching up the provision, but it will be what the provision actually represents to where we represents as to where we are now. Are we changing it because where we find ourselves, it has outlived its usefulness, and where we want to get to, we need a new provision that will take us to that point? I think that is what the committee is trying to look at. So I think the simple answer to your question would be that it is both. The committee is seeking to do both things, trying to have some amendments that would not just reflect the now, but also reflect the aspiration that the current president and then even subsequent leaders will try to carry the country into. So that is the mindset of the committee.
Okay. Kofi, do you think there's political will and just general interest from the citizenry for us to have our constitution review? Because as Noah said, the constitution is relatively thought of to be a good constitution. We've had it for 30 years. So in the old saying, if you ain't broke, don't fix it. Do you think there's that political will?
There is. Because if it wasn't, Fix the Country wouldn't have actually begun. Because they actually trumpeted the issue of we need a new constitution where the youth actually, they brought the youth along. So kudos to Oliver Barker-Vormawor and his group. They've actually done a lot more work, I think, than even the NCC on the constitution, and the need for a new one or not even an amendment. That's where my diversion is. But then, looking at the aspirations of young people now actually believe that the constitution is a living document that should actually reflect the now, the future, and should be able to help regulate how things are done in the country. Because they believe there was a certain leader who actually did a lot of tyranny with the constitution. That's how come people were thrown behind bars for doing far less things than they were actually supposed to be detained for. And people did it with the constitution. So everything you want to do, you'll find a footing or a right framing using the constitution, because they'll tell you that how they interpret it is different from how you see it. They'll come with a funny adage or coinage that the letter and the spirit. The letter and the spirit, I don't know if it's the Holy Spirit or it's the spirit Agada is using to do her church. But then, going forward, I think the young people being carried along to actually know that, okay, we can actually get A, B, C, D done with the amendment to the constitution, where we're not going to have excessive executive power, where district assemblies are actually going to vote for their direct representation. That's the development officers in the form of DCEs. Actually makes a lot of sense to them, because they would hold the MP accountable, but then the development agents really on the grounds are the district chief executives, which I think this new constitution would address. That, okay, I get an opportunity to actually vote for someone who is going to directly development. So that makes a lot of more sense to them than before.
Okay. All right. So let's take a word from our sponsors and we'll be right back. We'll delve into youth people and what we want to see in the constitution. Yo, Charley, it's still Democracy Day Street, and we are still on the issue of the Constitution and the constitutional review exercise ongoing. So, Kofi, as a young or young adjacent person, what amendments or changes do you want to see in the Constitution? How do you want the new Constitution to reflect you as a young or young adjacent person?
First and foremost, my development officer, that's the district chief executive, as now known, or municipal or metropolitan chief executives, should be voted for.
Why?
First and foremost, because direct development comes from them. They're the president's representative where I live. So if my roads are bad, there should be someone held accountable. I shouldn't always have to wait for the minister to go to parliament for my MP to ask him a question. If I'm voting for my DC, I should be able to walk into his office and ask him, Chief, this street in front of my house is bad. The issue of sanitation in my community, my district is bad. How do we fix it?
But if you are voting and it's most likely going to be along party or political lines, if you have, let's say, a red president and then an orange DC, then it means that no dice.
Yes, but then Ghanaians have shown themselves to be very discerning people. They know what they want. They know who can actually get the job done, and they vote accordingly. So there's been an issue of a hung parliament, which hitherto was unheard of, and now there's a super majority. Ghanaians are very discerning people. They know what they want at every point in time. So I believe that notwithstanding, we can actually get a DC who actually wants to work.
Okay, so
Because they are only mandated places that funding for the District Assembly Common Fund comes from.
So apart from the DC, what else would you like to see change from a young or young adjacent person's perspective?
So my people on the streets will tell you that if the holiday is midweek, it should be pushed to the weekend so that we have long weekends. So if it's Monday to Thursday, it should be moved to Friday.
So holidays, DCs, what else? One more thing.
If we can actually pilot a 4-day work week, because from proven data, there's actually enough productivity along the line. Because Iceland has tried it, UAE is also piloting it. The UK piloted it with 60 companies, and they saw an increment of no less than 20% improvement in actually the workforce, their standards of living, and then their productivity.
Okay, all right. So Noah, you mentioned that there are parts or specific parts of the Constitution that the CRC is looking at based on their mandate. Which of these parts will affect young people, and how can young people engage with these specific areas?
So I think there are a number of areas. What the committee did was that it's divided or structured the engagements around some thematic areas. So there is one on the independent constitutional bodies, and I've seen a lot of young people showing interest in that. Probably it is because of the history around some of these bodies where we are not really seeing them actively doing anything on the ground. Typical example is the NCC, like you rightly mentioned. A lot of young people have written on how getting people to know the Constitution is important in actually implementing whatever the Constitution says. And the NCC was supposed to play a pivotal role in that, but we've not seen anything around that. But one other interesting thing is what Kofi mentioned. We have seen a lot of comments and input from young people concerning voting for the MMDCs, and the divide has been on whether it should be on partisan basis or it should be non-partisan. But there is a very large sector of people who believe that it should be on partisan basis, and a lot of young people are making strong points for why it should be on partisan basis. But I think most of the concerns of young people, as we have seen from the committee's perspective, is on not necessarily on specific provisions. It's on an arrangement that would ensure that the ordinary Ghanaian is able to enjoy a good standard of living. So it's not really change the specific provision. It is, we want a good life. and politicians are draining the economy. So we just want that fixed. However, the constitution is going to be structured through the amendment process that will get this fixed. That's what a lot of young people are more concerned with. So I think that is the major headache to the committee now. How to amend the constitution in a manner that ensures that power is not kept in arbitrary hands, but is kept in a way that it can be leveraged for the development of the country. I think that is what the committee and young Ghanaians are actually looking out for.
Okay, so viewers, for those of you who don't know, you can hit us on our social media channels and let us know what you would like to see on the constitution. We'll also be hitting the streets very soon to ask you what you want to see in this new constitution. But one of the comments I got from our social media engagement, someone is suggesting that we should have a youth-based quota in parliament, that at least 35% or 30% of parliamentarians should be people who are under 35. What do you guys think about this? I'll start with Noah, then Kofi.
Yeah, so that's kept me in my earlier comments. It's one of the biggest issues that we've had. And surprisingly, it's not just young people. Even the older people who have come before the committee and that the committee has engaged over the past few weeks, those who were there even before 1992 Constitution 79 have made like serious arguments for proportional representation for young people, for persons with disability, for women, and some other, for the want of a better word, vulnerable groups in society. And I think it's something that we may have to get a buy-in from Parliament to get that done. But I think from the way things are going, it's one of the major things the committee will deliberate upon. And if there is the buy-in, we may see reflect in the constitution. People are really pushing for proportional representation.
Yeah. Kofi, what do you think? Proportional representation for young people in Parliament? Yes or no?
Yes, I believe in that. Because now we have about 27% of MPs being women. But then amongst them, there are young people who have been able to make their way into governments and all. But then, if there's a quota system, the price for actually running for an elective position now, as put out by the CDD and the Afrobarometer, and then Imani, actually puts young people at a disadvantage. Because a young man straight from school, let's say 19, who is full of zeal, actually wanting to build a country, will not even have up to 100,000 cedis in his account. But he would rather have to go on a fundraising scheme, actually, if he wants to actually serve his country in that capacity. Which I think, if we have a proportionate representation, that would help. At least we know that, okay, 20% of all persons coming into government, be it government A, government B, government C, this quota still stands. So that one is the reserve of young people, so that they can also contribute their youthful energies and youthful ideas to actually making the country a better place. And then persons with disabilities and all, they can also be given another quota. So looking at it, I think the quota system actually going forward should actually be implemented. It's rather unfortunate that in the 2016 election, there was this lawyer who contested up north, the former chieftaincy minister. He was visually impaired. He would have been a fine addition to the parliamentary system of Ghana, but unfortunately he lost the main election. So with persons like that who actually can rub shoulder to shoulder with persons, able-bodied men and women, there should be that quota for them so that they can all contribute to the nation, because they are also contributing their quota in one way or the other. But then in the House of Representatives, if such people are there, it will actually make our legal system and our legislative system actually work better, so that we'll have a fair idea of how their world is and appreciate whatever goes through, and they would also appreciate the system of governance that we're running.
Okay, so I have another request from our viewers, and someone is saying that the NCC should be removed from the constitution and replaced with an independent constitutional body that promotes entrepreneurship and youth employment. Noah, from a constitution building perspective, because I know you've studied constitutions for a while, do you think this is feasible? Do you think that something like this would work for us?
So I would say that both institutions can coexist. I think it's in the Constitutive Assembly report that's mentioned that for the 1990 Constitution to achieve its objective, the NC sensitizing people on their civic rights and responsibility was like pivotal, was non-negotiable. So one way or the other, it seems that the reason why we are struggling with achieving the objectives of the 1992 Constitution is because a lot of Ghanaians don't know what the Constitution is, what their rights are under the Constitution, and what their responsibilities are as citizens of the country. So I don't think we should do away with the NCC. I think that we should retool the NCC. The NCC's lack of presence in our system currently, I think it's not because they don't want to work. It is because they are not financial. And then sometimes I'm feeling here they have like 2 vehicles across the entire country. So it's something that we need to be intentional about. We need to give the NCC what they need to do their work. But the other agency or institution the person is suggesting, actually, I think is something that we can do. If we are building a constitution that is very youth-oriented, and we know that employment has become a difficult thing, especially in the public sector, and youth entrepreneurship is one thing that we really want to champion, then we need to have an intentional institution that is focused on helping young people develop a skill. The question will be whether it should be in the constitution or it should be in an act of parliament. That will be another issue. But I think the way we deal with non-constitutional issues in this country, the seriousness we attach to constitutional issues and the lack of seriousness we attach to things outside the constitution, maybe that's the reason why people think that such an institution should be in the constitution.
Kofi, what do you think? In the constitution, should we have an independent entity solely dedicated to youth and entrepreneurship matters?
Putting that in the constitution, I think, is far-fetched because there are creations from the legislature that actually fits the bill, like NEIP, for instance, is handling entrepreneurship. There's now a Ministry of Youth Development that's also handling youth matters. First, it used to be Ministry of Youth and Sports, where the sports was overshadowing the youth development. But with President Mahama coming in and what he's done, and what it shows that he's actually thought of young people in this country, how entrepreneurship can actually be groomed and create more self-made men and women. I think putting it to the constitution, yes, is a good idea, but I think it's far-fetched because there are already legislative instruments and acts of parliament that has actually brought about these things. So putting it back in will make it a little bit untidy, for want of a better word. So let's just go with the system we have now and then make good progress.
Okay. So, no, I have one last question. Someone is asking about digital rights and protection of digital rights. In this very privacy-driven era, what proposals are you guys hearing that would protect the digital rights and the privacy rights of particularly young Ghanaians who are users of these new medias?
Yes, so I don't think there has been a lot of submissions or commentaries surrounding digital rights. I think the last session the stakeholder engagement the committee had was with the media and then social media influencers and content creators. I think that was the first time that someone actually raised that issue. That's although we will usually think of it as finding a place within the general right to privacy and all of that under the Constitution, there is a need to clearly state it within the Constitution. I think some other constitutions in East Africa have introduced new rights, consumer rights, digital rights, and all of that within their constitutional space. So it's something that has come up recently, with the committee's engagements with the social media influencers and then content creators. And I think I saw that the digital space is not what it used to be some years ago. It's controlling a lot of aspects of our lives. And I think that we must be intentional on how we regulate that space. Because as it stands now, without proper regulation, especially within the constitution, in my view, it has left a lot of the day-to-day regulation of that space within the hands of the police and then some politicians who have the police at their beck and call. It's led to a lot of abuse of people's rights on social media. And so I think it would be a good thing to clearly define it in the constitution. And then clearly everyone would know that they have that right. And then the people who may try to breach that right will also know the restriction that is placed on them by the constitution.
All right. So it's still Democracy Day Street. We're going to take a word from our sponsors and we'll continue our conversation right after. It's still Democracy Day Street, and we are still on the constitutional review. Now, when we're on the break, I got a text message from a very interested party who wants to know, does the constitution review process present an opportunity for us to put to bed this issue of legalization of LGBTQ rights, and what have been so I'll start with Noah, what have been the responses that we've received so far, and then we'll go to Kofi to tell us what he thinks the perception is out there on the streets. So Noah.
Yeah, I think I've not yet cited any submission from anyone on the LGBTQ issue. I haven't. And so I don't know if it will be one of the major issues on the table for the committee to discuss. I think the way the committee is going about its work is going to look at the submissions that have come in, to look at areas that Ghanaians are interested in, and then deliberate on those submissions in these areas and then come out with a recommendation. So I'm not very sure whether there will be the need to address anything of that nature in the constitution, looking at the submissions that have come in so far.
Okay, and Kofi, do you think young people want the constitution to definitively state our position pro or against LGBTQ rights?
I think this is a defining moment for the country because we've had successive presidents make their stance clear on where they stand concerning this LGBTQ thing. And personally, everything against it. And I think the nation, we can actually do ourselves a lot of good by legislating it so that everybody knows that just as when you kill someone, you know it's a crime. Let's just put this as part of crimes under our statute books and then do away with, so that nobody will come and say, if you approve this, we are not going to give you aid. If you don't approve this, we are going. That's a whole lot of mess. But then we just have a fine opportunity of putting this issue to bed.
Okay. All right. Then the other thing I ask, and this is from me, climate change. Are we getting submissions on climate change in this constitutional review process? And what have those submissions looked like now?
Yeah. So we've had a couple of them. And I think those that are quite head-on climate change are those that are asking for provisions within our Bill of Rights that specifically provides for the right to a clean and healthy environment and a sustainable climate. So as other countries recently have done, I am very, very sure that if the Bill of Rights is to be touched in any way, one of the inputs that we are likely to see will be a specific or an explicit mention of a right to a sustainable climate. So that is what the submissions have been around, that we should codify it within the Constitution so that it will be a right that people can hold the state to. So I look forward to that. As someone interested in that space, I look forward to having that on our constitution. Yeah.
Okay. Now, as we wrap up the conversation, Noah, what can young people do to get involved in the process, and how long do we have left until the process is over?
Yeah, so the mandate of the committee was for 6 months and started somewhere around February. So roughly by August, the committee will be wrapping up its work to submit its report. Now, I think as young people, as we indicated earlier, this is an opportunity for us to frame for ourselves a constitution that meets our current needs and even address the concerns of the next generation that will be coming right after us, because it's been over 30 years. And this is like the first time that we are having a very strong consensus as a nation on having amendments to the constitution. We've had two before, and during those times, it was a president's own single vision. The other one was a minister's single vision. But this time, it is a demand on the presidency by Ghanaians, and the president has accepted that demand and has constituted this committee. So as young people, we should find our voice within that space. And we can do that in a number of ways. One is that the committee has its office at the office of the president annex around Osu, close to the new EC's office. You can walk in with your submission at any time. Young people should put together written submissions, whether individually or as a collective, and then present it there. The issue is, I think what a lot of young people say is that, well, what if I put in a submission and then it is not taken by the committee? But the point is that the committee will be considering many submissions. If you don't put in your submission, and there's a submission that follows only one particular angle, that may be, or it may seem like what the Ghanaians are actually clamoring for. So you should bring in your submissions. You can walk in and then do that. But also, if you go to the committee's website, which is constitutionreviewgh.org, there is a space for you to submit a soft copy of your submission through that space, and then it comes to the committee. So you can also do that and then bring your submissions to the committee. But lastly, as the committee moves around across the country, the committee will be in Sunyani, Bolga, Wa, Tamale, Koforidua. There will be Accra, Tema, Takrade, and then quite a number of other places, Kumasi included. What I want to see and what I'm looking out for will be teaming young people who come out to make their voices and their views on the Constitution known. It will form a pivotal part of the Constitution Reviews Committee's deliberation when it comes to writing their report. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing in the coming days from young people.
Okay. So Kofi, I hope to see your proposals for voting of DCs and a 4-day work week in the constitutional review. So this has been Democracy Day Street, and today we've been talking constitutional review. As our guests have told us, we are in the process of reviewing our 1992 constitution. The work is ongoing for another 3-4 months. Yeah. 3-4 months, and everybody, including you, yes, you, should get involved in the process. You can write to them, engage them on social media, or just walk into the office with your proposal on how you want our constitution to be changed. As our contribution to this, Charley, Democracy Day Street are going on the streets this afternoon to find out from young people what they want to see in the constitution, and we'll compile it and send it over to Noah. So it's over to you, young people. Tell us what you want to see in the constitution, and let's see if we can make it happen. My name is Albert Ejapon, and this has been Democracy Day Street.
I'm Albert. But no. Now, I think of all the times, the one I want him to change will be the one that gives past presidents the immunity from being sent to court for 10 years. To me, it's too long a time. Because it's high time they have to be accountable for whatever they did during their tenure of office. And 10 years to me is too far a time for them to be immune to being sent to court. That's too long. So they should change that. I think they change that. In the new constitution, I think, apart from the one for government appointees, I was also thinking how sometimes the appointment for certain arms of government, like let's say for the judiciary, is being done by the government, IGP is being done by the executive. I think those things should be changed. Because if I want the army or let's say the police force to be independent of the government, why should they be appointed by the same said government? Because in that case, they will pledge fealty to him and then they wouldn't be able to perform their duties that way. That one should be added, and then I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Albert.
You're welcome, my brother.
I'm Vivaldi.
Vivaldi.
Yes, please. Okay, no. With the constitution, I think if something needs to be changed, in my perspective, first of all, when it comes to our security services, I think changes need to be done around that area. The security services should be left independent. It shouldn't be meddled with politics, so that they will be able to work independently. You know, when they are independent, they will be able to implement what they are supposed to do. But here lies the case, they are being meddled with politics. So even when they are supposed to do what they are supposed to do, someone high there will come and step in, and then, so I think that place should be checked. Also, I think our judicial services also should be left independent. As far as I know, I stand to be corrected. I think some of the top people in the judiciary services are being appointed, are politically appointed, which I think is off. That means if I don't belong to a particular political party and I have an issue, because I belong to Party A and people representing at that place is Party B, which means the case is obviously going to go against me. But if it's independent, it's non-partisan, I think there will be fairness. Yeah. Okay, so new laws. I think let me give a scenario. So I think our current president is doing very well. Within this short period, we can all testify. He's doing very well. So, and I think this is his last term. So looking at the whole scenario, if he's working up to standard or to expectations, and there could be an amendment to give him the chance to maybe continue, I think that should be done. But then some people will say that what if he's given the chance and then maybe later after 6 years he starts doing some way somehow? The power is in our hands. If you do some way somehow, the way we brought you, we send you out that same way. So I think if there should be an amendment, it should be around that area.
Thank you so much, Iba.
Welcome.
My name is McAfee.
Makafui.
Yeah. Yes, I'm very much aware. I think President Mahama made them to start to do a constitutional review. Yeah. I think the way taxes are being taken from us, I think there should be a law that looks at it, because those of us working in the working with the government sector, they take us a lot of tax. After that, they take us tax on many things. We go to restaurants, they bill us. We go to shops, they take us tax. And I think they should look into the taxing of that at that point. I think that as of now, they've not even implemented the LGBTQ law. And I think that the new government was when they were in opposition, they were fighting so much on this law to be passed. But as of now, we've not seen anything. So I think that they should hasten upon that and then work it out.
Thank you so much, Makafui.
You're welcome.
This is your Charley.
Okay.
I'm Collins.
Collins.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Well, article, is it 97, the one that talks about ex gratia. I want to see that actually repealed and changed. Okay, so I think we should think of making more laws that makes the other arms of government independent. Okay, we should look for laws that makes the other arms of government independent, whereby the president can't just appoint people, and in the same way, because he appoints people, he can decide to take somebody out of here. So I believe there should be laws that stops that kind of thing, such that it makes institutions independent, where they choose their own leader, and after a certain term, a new leader is brought in. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
You're blessed.
So this is your Charlie.
Yo, Charlie.
Yeah, your Charlie.